Hello and welcome to the latest webinar from Essent. Today we're going to illustrate some of the most common business efficiency problems. We've characterized these problems as the 5 foes of business, a way that they're easier to spot and ultimately fix. My name is Doug Brill. I'm the Essent Marketing Coordinator and I specialize in the promotional products industry. I'm also your moderator for today. Before we begin, a very brief overview of Essent. Essent is the leader in providing comprehensive business management solutions since 1981. Essent has been serving distributors, decorators, and suppliers in the promotional products industry since the year 2000. And more than $3 billion in commerce flows through Essent Solutions each year. We expect that you may have some questions, but in an effort to keep the webinar concise for everyone, we can only answer those questions offline. So feel free to use the webinar control panel to submit your questions, and we'll be happy to answer them for you after the webinar has ended. So who are the 5 foes of business? As a technology solutions provider that analyzes businesses regularly, Essent encountered a lot of the companies coming up with the same problems repeatedly. So we created the 5 foes comic book characters to put a face to those common problems. The idea is that by putting a face to the efficiency issues, will make the efficiency issues easier to identify and easier to fix. The 5 foes are so common that sometimes they just blend in, and they're eventually accepted as just a normal part of doing business. But the 5 foes don't need to be a part of business. They represent inefficiency, redundancy, and wasted time. And they can be removed from operations through automation and integration, through technology. When a business sees a part of operations that's reminiscent of the 5 foes, it's not even necessarily a bad thing. You've identified the problem. Think of it as an opportunity to become more efficient. The solutions to the foes are just around the corner. The first step is to understand the enemy. Recognizing the foes for what they are is the first step towards stopping them. The next step is to reject the status quo. The foes shouldn't be chalked up to just the cost of doing business. Technology will facilitate the business practices that stop the foes from growing out of control and taking over the business. And with that, here to bring you a closer look at the 5 foes is your presenter, Shemaine Shad. Shemaine is a sales coordinator for Essent, and she's also a specialist in the promotional products industry. Shemaine is going to tell you more about how to spot the 5 foes and the technology solutions that stop the foes in their tracks.
Thank you, Doug. The 5 foes represent inefficiency, redundancy, wasted time, misapplied resources, rework, and mistakes. All of the culprits that slow down business. We hope to put a name and a face to these problems so that they're easier to identify and to fix. Let's start off with the paper monster. Paper monster hides in plain sight as a harmless stack of documents, but transforms into an unmanageable swirling pile of paperwork. It fatigues professionals and renders them ineffective. The more paper involved in business processes, the greater the chance that Paper Monster will create inefficiency. Here are some symptoms to consider for Paper Monster. You might have a whole room or multiple rooms devoted to storing paper, or at least several filing cabinets. You're constantly printing, filing, sorting, and searching for documents. And it's impossible to complete the order life cycle without these papers. It's truly not necessary to use paper unless required by law. When paper is required for a process, it's almost always a sign of inefficiency. The paper monster causes at least two major problems. First of all, paper documents are difficult to access. They're hard to find. They might be stored far away. They're impossible to access electronically, and they're impossible to access remotely. The even bigger problem is processing paper. Paper cannot be automated and integrated. That means paper always requires manual processes, which leads to delays and errors. When you need to access information, how do you do it? Most of the time it involves typing descriptive terms into a search bar and hitting enter. But there is no search bar on the filing cabinet, of course. Finding information on paper is always going to be a physical and potentially lengthy process. And the other key factor being that paper cannot be accessed remotely. Staff isn't always in the office. They're at the client's office. They're at a trade show. They're working from home. Or they're traveling. If the needed information is only on paper, they will not have access to the information they need that can only be found back at the office. Paper creates a costly barrier to information. But the most costly part of paper is trying to process it. Simply put, paper cannot be automated. Companies have paid enormous sums of money for people to slowly, manually, and inefficiently process paper information. Let's suppose a sales rep speaks with a prospect and writes down order details. With paper, now it's a manual step to turn that order detail into a quote. It's another manual step to turn that information into a sales order. Now let's look further down the order life cycle. You still need to fulfill the order, ship the order, and invoice the order. With paper documents, each of these steps in the order life cycle will be manual. This will be time-intensive and error-prone, like all manual processes. Processing paper is always slow, manual, and inefficient. The first solution to the paper monster is to simply stop using paper. Thankfully, there is almost always an electronic alternative. The documents required for every step of the order life cycle can be stored in an easily accessible electronic location. Shifting from paper to technology is a huge advantage. That's because once information is electronic, it can be automated. Therefore, going paperless isn't just eliminating paper, it's eliminating manual processes. The next foe is double entry. Double entry forces professionals to type in the same information over and over. It wastes time and ultimately leads to manual errors that result in even more work. It's truly not necessary to enter information more than once, if it needs to be entered at all. Every time data is entered manually, it's a sign of inefficiency. Here are some of the problems with double entry and manual data entry in general. Manual data entry takes time. It costs man-hours to manually input data. and the same information may need to be entered multiple times, once for each step of an order. Manual data entry is also highly error-prone. When a staff person is making literally thousands of keystrokes per day, it's easy for some of those keystrokes to go wrong. Order information can be entered incorrectly or completely missed. With manual data entry, it's not just double entry. It can be triple entry, quadruple entry, and so on. Again, you're going to have a manual activity at every step of the order life cycle. And manual data entry is always an opportunity for an error to occur, especially in the promotional products industry, where, as you know, every order has specialized information. Information can easily be missing. As a result, it's going to take time to fill in those blanks. Or there could be a simple typo or vague information. And now it's going to take time to find out what the intent truly was. If a system invites manual order entry, it's inviting errors. So what is the result of those errors? One large supplier told PPB Magazine that it cost the company $13,000 per day to fix flawed orders. With a typical 5-day work week, there are 261 days in a year. Do the math. And the cost of errors is $3.4 million for just one company. So you want to perform as little manual data entry as possible. The solution is to integrate, integrate, integrate. An integrated business management system means entering data no more than one time. The information can then flow automatically from quote to order to fulfillment and so on, all without manual entry. Customers can even perform the data entry for you, meaning the end user can configure a product on an e-commerce website. And an integrated system means the information will flow directly into your back office. Integrating with trading partners is probably the most powerful way to prevent manual data re-entry. Systems integration unites both distributors and suppliers to share important business information automatically and in real time. Our third foe is black hole. Black hole hides your important information in folders, file cabinets, email archives, or even just inside a colleague's head, making it difficult or almost impossible to access information, even at critical times. This is how you know when the black hole is victimizing a business. When there isn't a central repository for information, people will not always know where to go for the information. Another sign being that there are delays in getting information to the customer, or even delays in getting information to other departments within your very own company. And if staffers need to contact other staffers to obtain routine information, it's a sign of the black hole. It's as if the information is hidden and you need a designated team of people just to find it. In short, if information is anywhere but at your fingertips, you're a victim of the black hole, and it creates inefficiency. The black hole is simply going to create delays. Operations can get backed up while waiting on information. All the while, the business is losing time, losing profits, and customer satisfaction. Now, in order to catch up and meet those deadlines, orders are effectively going to turn into rush orders with rush order costs. When information goes missing, someone has to dig it out of the black hole. And that information could be anywhere. It could be in email archives. It might be in a folder on someone else's desk. Possibly only existing in a coworker's head. And maybe that particular coworker no longer works for the company. All the while, keep in mind, the transaction is on hold. When information goes missing, the project goes on hold. And now the clock is ticking to reach these deadlines. If missing information is regularly holding up orders, operations as a result is backed up, and now everything is essentially a rush. So, you may have overtime costs to meet shortened production schedules, and you may have costs for expedited shipping in order to meet those deadlines. And all the while, the customer is waiting. Missing information holds up operations, and that can ultimately become quite costly. The bottom line is that if information isn't easy to find, it's not easy to use. Information needs to be stored centrally and electronically. In other words, it should be stored in your business management system, or ERP, where everyone knows exactly where to find it. Even better than finding information quickly is not having to find it at all. An integrated business management system can automatically pre-populate critical information for the documents needed throughout the entire order lifecycle. Not to mention, cloud-based software is a great way to make sure information is always available. Not only is the information backed up, but it's accessible from anywhere. Up next, we have Profit Taker. Profit Taker exploits inefficiency. He steals little bits of time that no one notices until it all adds up. Here are some of the signs that you are being robbed by Profit Taker. It might feel like there's just not enough time in the day to do what needs to get done. If business processes lack definition and enforcement, that's leaving room for inefficiency that Profit Taker can exploit. And if activities and processes are manual, it's easy for Profit Taker to slip in and steal a little bit of time on every transaction. If a process or activity takes just a few minutes longer than necessary, it's a sign of inefficiency. Most of the problems caused by Profit Taker seem routine. But if you see activities and processes taking longer than expected, that's a sign of Profit Taker stealing time. And the longer a process or activity takes, the less profitable they are. An order that takes a long time soaks up man-hours and decreases margins. Profit Taker usually strikes when information moves from one part of the order life cycle to the next. For example, even though most of the information is already in the quote, someone winds up re-entering all of that information into the sales order. Information like names, addresses, order details, and stock keeping units. All of these winding up being manually transferred from the quote to the sales order. Then it happens again when the order moves to fulfillment, shipping, invoicing, and so on. That's Profit Taker, stealing a little bit of time at every step of the way. It winds up that extra time becomes built into every step of every transaction. And that can and will add up. Let's just say data entry takes just 5 minutes each time. but you have 6 steps that need that data. So now, all of a sudden, that's 30 extra minutes built into every order. At that rate, every 2 orders cost an extra hour. Every 80th order costs 1 weekly salary. And after about 4,000 orders, it costs an annual salary. Companies that handle thousands of orders cannot waste this kind of time. Losing just a little bit of time on each step of the order quickly adds up. Orders need to be as efficient as possible, and that requires technology. Once again, the solution is an integrated back office. Automatic data flow from one step to the next will save time on the processes that are taking up way too much time right now. Businesses need well-formed orders. Well-formed orders start right and stay right throughout the entire sales pipeline. So once orders are entered, they don't need to be revisited or corrected. Saving just a minute on each step might not sound like much, but over the course of dozens or hundreds or thousands of orders per week, it adds up quickly. Finally, we have Strata. Strata is a spreadsheet problem. Strata locks business processes into cumbersome spreadsheets. It makes the processes take hours instead of seconds. Here are some of the symptoms of Strata. If you've ever felt like you have spreadsheets to manage your spreadsheets, you know you've been victimized by Strata. Another symptom is that your information is scattered among several spreadsheets in several different locations. You have all the information, but you need to remember where you put it. And it's easy to create multiple versions of what's supposed to be the same spreadsheet. So people think they're working off of the same information, but in actuality they are not. When operations are built on spreadsheets, it's a sign of inefficiency. A spreadsheet is a powerful business tool, but when processes are built on layers of spreadsheets, it turns into an enemy that takes on a life of its own. One big problem is that spreadsheets start to dictate processes, but only after they're brought up to date. For example, if it's time for inventory replenishment, no one will know to do anything about it until the spreadsheet has been updated. Spreadsheets also make it easy to create inaccurate information. Data is entered manually, which is always error-prone. And everyone knows how one false move with a formula can throw everything off. Information is worthless if you can't use it to take the proper action. And it's hard to take action on information that's in a spreadsheet. Viewing one spreadsheet may not give you all the information you need to make the best decision. Imagine managing customer information, order detail, shipping information, and billing information through a set of spreadsheets that are not even connected. The inefficiency is apparent. Counting on spreadsheets to trigger activities means counting on disconnected activities. Spreadsheets hold a lot of information, but it's hard to use that information. Spreadsheets make it too easy to distort information. The most common way to share a spreadsheet is an email attachment, and every time attached, there's a new version of the spreadsheet, which often becomes a different version. Ultimately, there are multiple versions of what's supposed to be the same information. Spreadsheets have information, but it's easy to turn it into the wrong information. Business processes don't need to be built on spreadsheets. Updating a spreadsheet for every sale to track inventory, revenue, accounting, and more is very time-consuming, not to mention error-prone. Companies need to use the right tool for the job. Business processes should be performed using a business management system or ERP, technology that's designed to run a business. Well, that takes us through our 5 foes of business, representing common business efficiency problems. So to recap, paper is a sign of inefficiency because it's difficult to access and cannot be automated. Manual data entry is a problem because it costs time and labor. More importantly, it invites errors that are cost even more time and labor. The black hole is where information goes to hide, like a file cabinet, email archives, or just in someone's head. It causes costly delays and backs up operations. Profit taker takes little bits of time without anyone even noticing. But an extra couple of minutes on each step of the order life cycle adds up into some big costs. And finally, we saw strata and the problems with spreadsheets. Spreadsheets usually point to disconnected information and operations, and it's easy to create bad information in a spreadsheet. And with that, I would like to turn it back over to Doug, who will tell you how you can learn more about Essent.
Thank you very much, Shemaine. Essent is dedicated to providing efficiency in the promotional products industry. Essent offers fully integrated technology solutions for business management, e-commerce, and systems integration, and Essent solutions overcome all of the efficiency problems that we discussed today. To learn more about the 5 foes in business efficiency, you can visit essent.com/5foes. There, you can review the efficiency issues we discussed today, and you can also use that page to get in touch with an Essent representative for a free consultation about efficiency in your business. Again, that's essent.com/5foes to learn more. And thanks again to everyone for attending today's webinar. Fight the 5 foes for a more efficient business.